Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I will be explaining some of the properties and values that can be used to determine the display and position of an element on a web page. We'll begin with the position property. When setting the position of an element, there are different values you can use with the position. So if you want the positioning to be relative, you need to specify that first, and then followed by the properties of top, right, bottom, or left, depending on where you want to apply the positioning. But the first thing you do, you determine the type of position, because there are different types of positioning. Next, like for example here, I've specified a relative, and here I've specified an absolute position. You've got other types of position as well. Next, the display. The display property is used to determine how an element is displayed. So by default, when they are created, they're either displayed in line or as block elements. Block elements are displayed on separate lines, while inline elements are stacked up horizontally. So you can use the display property to determine where or how an element is displayed. Inline means stack them up horizontally. Display inline block means stack them up horizontally but as block elements. Another property we can use is the float property. The float property is used to determine which direction an element should be floated to. You can specify left or right. And then you've got the clear property. The clear property is usually used where you find the float property, because it kind of mops up after the float property. So whereby an element has been floated, it can create an obstruction preventing other elements from occupying that space or floating in that same direction, or it can affect the positioning of other elements. So you can use the clear property to clear the obstruction caused by the floating element. Another property you can use is the overflow. What the overflow does is used to hide content that has overflown its container. Like this red box we've got here. If we've got an image that spills out of this red box, we can use the overflow with a hidden value to clip the image and then hide whatever is left, so you don't see any overflow outside the box. There are other values you can specify with the overflow. There is auto, there is scroll, and a few others, but the common ones that I use are hidden and auto. What auto does is that it hides it, and it can also create a scroll so that you can see the rest of the content after it's been clipped. So these are the main properties and values that you can use to determine the position and display of an element on a web page. In this video, we went through some of the display and position properties that can be used on a web page. We went through the position property. When specifying that, you need to determine the type of position first, and then preceding that, you specify the top, right, bottom, or left property, depending on the property you want to apply the positioning effect to. We also mentioned the display property, which determines how the elements are displayed, either in line or in block, or as inline block, which means let's stack them up horizontally but as block elements. Also covered what a float is. A float property is used to float elements in a certain direction, usually is left or right. And then the clear property is used to clear the obstruction caused by the floating element. And the values you can use for that are right, clear left, or clear both. Another property that can be used is the overflow. Overflow used to hide elements that have overgrown its container. So if you, for example, if you've got an image that is exceeded the container, you can use the overflow property to clip that image and hide the overflow from view. Thank you so much. I hope the video has been useful. It's giving you some insight into the syntax that can be used to specify position and display of an element. Thank you and bye for now.